especially on this important moment. And I'm going to let Christine Greenhow come up and get us started.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lynn. And first of all, I just want to say that I'm sure that Glenn had copious remarks prepared, so this is very much extemporaneous. But I just want to say, as a personal fan of the work of Pew Internet American Life Project, which, of course, Lee Ranie and his team has influenced so many of us. So oftentimes when we talk about what our team's doing with the Internet, how are they using the Internet, how are they using Web 2.0, how are they using social network sites, how are they using blogs, that research is coming out of Pew. And I think all of us have been finding ourselves referring to Pew over and over and over. So that's a very abbreviated version of what Glenn would have elaborated on. And with that, I want to have the presidents of the organizations come up and present the award.
Sure. So we would appreciate the work that you've done. We appreciate the information we get from because we all use it on our slides all the time. So thank you very much. And on behalf of the organization supporting this effort.
This is tied with the nicest day of the life of the Pew Internet and American Life Project. It's tied with the day we were sort of birthed, or even pre-birthed. I was sitting at my desk as an editor at U.S. News and World Report, so I apologize to all of you who are in the Academy. One of the things I did as one of my last jobs at U.S. News, among many things, was to oversee the college rankings. So I feel like I kind of made up for those sins by at least helping you folks out. But I was sitting there at my desk, and I was relatively unhappy. I was working with my 6th editor after 12 years there. We had a lot of churn in that job. And I had let it be known that I was ready to move on, and some friends of mine had coincidentally been contacted by the Pew Charitable Trust to talk about an idea that they had for a research project built around studying the Internet. And so I got a cold call. I'm sitting at my desk. I'm an unhappy editor at a magazine that's cratering. And this guy identifies himself as one of the program officers at the Pew Trust. So this email comes in from Glenn saying, we'd like to give you an award, and they immediately forwarded it to me because they knew the boss wanted all the FaceTime on this one. And I said, yeah, I'll go. And so here I am, and I'm thanking you mostly on their behalf because they do so much of the work that you guys in particular care about. Now I'm going to tell you about the second best set of days in the life of the Internet Project. We get the Pew funding, and we're in business in early 2000. And about 3 months after we were in business, so basically when we're fielding our first survey, we'd spent initial time just setting up our office and stuff like that, and finally figuring out what our first survey was going to be on. It was about people's use of email, and whether the Internet was isolating people and pushing them away from each other, or whether it was a socially useful tool. And hint, hint, we found that it was socially useful. But right when we're writing that first survey, we were trying to figure out how we were going to do all of our work and distinguish ourselves from the dozen or more organizations that were kind of like us. There were think tanks, independent institutes, academy-based institutes, and some very serious scholars who were working in the same field. And I was a little bit nervous that we would distinguish ourselves in this pretty interesting market that we were in. And the second best thing that happened to us was the dot-com bubble bursting. Now, we might be the only beneficiaries of that, but what happened then is because there was so much of corporate money, and particularly dot-com money, that was helping fund some of those other research projects, that all dried up for that. And the third best day was the day the Bush administration decided not to be serious about Internet research. So the dot-com bubble bursts, and all of our competitors sort of go out of business. The government itself decides not to be very serious about this stuff, starting in 2002. And so I say that our history of the project is our march towards being accidental monopolists. I mean, one of the reasons you have to cite our data is that no one else has stuff like we do, right? And I want to tell you, it's a great world to be in. Thank God. So every morning I wake up, my blessings are I don't have to think about how we're going to make money. I don't have to think about how we're going to promote our stuff because there's a ready audience for it. And I don't have to worry about making mistakes because we can't make mistakes in this field. Everything we decide to study usually has interesting answers and usually is useful for somebody. The image we have of teenagers, certainly the cultural image of teenage gamers is, they're 14-year-old boys sitting in their basement, blowing up things alone, and feeling ever more aggressive as they're getting there, so they go, eventually the only way they interact with anybody out in the real world is punching them in the nose, or worse, and stuff like that. Well, it turns out when we start asking teens about their gaming experiences, it's a much richer story and richer palette. The average teenager plays 5 different kinds of games. Some of them might be violent, but many of them are not. The average teenager plays games with other people in the room sitting there or on the internet. So it's a highly social experience. Many teenagers end up having, by anyone's definition, a highly social and civic experiences online. They work with other people to solve problems. In the serious gaming, which there's a pretty rich environment for, they are learning how to work with other people. They are answering questions together. They're learning about events in history or public policy issues and stuff like that. It turns out that there is a highly rich and highly civic kinds of activities that are going on online. And we basically say that's what's going on. The stereotype that we have as a culture about gamers is very incomplete. And there's lots more stuff going on. 97% of kids play games. So this isn't something that a wacko group of renegades is doing, and we have to, if we just put them in, re-education camps, we could solve the problem. It's everybody, and it's as much girls as it is boys, and girls have very different gaming experiences and connections to games, but it's an environment in which everyone is participating and is feeling, getting different kinds of reactions from. And that's a better way to be having a conversation about the impact of games in our culture than to be just sort of doing all sorts of hand-wringing about, shoot 'em up games and mayhem. And there's important, just to make this clear, there's really important experimental research that's shown that people in highly aggressive gaming environments end up being more aggressive themselves and stuff like that. So there's stuff to be thinking about and orienting public policy discussions about and stuff like that. But what MacArthur knew, or at least suspected, and what we showed in this survey was that there's a lot more going on, and it's a lot more complicated and more interesting environment than that stereotype would have it. So then we had really interesting experiences talking to the press about this because just lots of reporters are used to writing these stories that games are good or games are bad. The gaming writers, the guys who there are now beats at most major news organizations called the gaming beat. And there are, God knows, an infinite number of gaming newsletters and discussion boards and stuff like that. For them, gaming is an unalterably good thing. It's all great, it's wonderful, it's great and rich and stuff like that. Then there's another cohort of people who think it's just unalterably bad, and it's QED, discussion over. It's just not. Kids waste time. They get obese. They obviously get more aggressive, and it breeds anti-social mores and stuff like that. Well, they're not entirely right either. And so MacArthur was hoping, and our survey sort of helped move along the conversation to something a little bit more interesting and a little more grounded in data and reality and stuff like that. So that's where we stand right now, and we're actually at a crossroads thinking about what our next piece of research is going to be. And that brings me to things that actually I'd love your advice and hear your consultation on this. We're talking to MacArthur about some other kinds of work that relates more directly to the way that the internet and cell phones and all the digital environment affects the research life of teenagers, both in the formal sense and informal sense. There's obviously the strategies of how you gain, how you acquire information, how you assess information, and nowadays the action piece, how you acquire, assess, and act on information is very different, and I would argue that the action piece is radically different environment from the past because action can take so many more forms and takes us more broad public forms in the Web 2.0 environment. And we're sort of figuring out how to go after these questions. And in a public survey environment, what you want to do is certainly talk to people about things you can count, things you can measure, and ask questions that are easy to answer.